Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we're going to be having a look at how to set up a jungle terrain for your tabletop skirmish games. For this example, I'll be using one of the missions from our new Tour of Duty Rogue Warriors Jungle campaign. This is Operation Nightingale, and this is the first mission in the new book. And this is going to be on a 3-foot by 3-foot battlefield. The mat I've got here is a 44-inch by 60-inch, and you could just measure out 3-foot by 3-foot and use that whole mat, and that's nice to have a little bit of a border going around it, just to immerse yourself in it a little bit more. And sometimes these bigger maps have some nice features, like these pathways and this little rocky road as well, which is really cool. But I'm going to put a 3-foot by 3-foot mat on top of this larger one, and then that's going to make it very clear the battlefield that we're going to be playing on. But you're still going to get that immersive feeling by having more green going around the battlefield that you'll be playing on. Let's start having a look through some of the different terrain pieces that I'm going to be using, and you probably recognise these, the Warhammer trees. They're all over the place, very common, and these make some great centre pieces, some big chunky bits of terrain. They're going to block sight, give you cover, that kind of thing. Then I've got these really cheap palm trees that I bought on Amazon. They come like this. You could paint them up and give them a bit more highlight, that kind of thing. And then I've got some railway trees as well. So I've got all different types, different sizes, and then a combination of all these trees together is going to create a real dense jungle, and that's the idea that I want to go with for this setup. Then I've got this big pile of foliage here, and I got this from a pound store in the UK, like the dollar store you get in the US, and this was like a big sheet, like a trellis almost, and then I picked all the different pieces off, and you can see there they would have been on some little plastic plugs, and then when they've come off, these are great, and that's going to give us a really nice set of foliage to add to our jungle terrain. I like to be able to use things in lots of different setups, so I'm not going to glue my trees to any bases. Instead, I'm going to use these insulation foam hills that I made a while ago, and these are great for all different types of games. And I made this really simply by getting some foam, grabbing my knife, and just like plucking off all little pieces to add a bit of texture, giving it a nice coat of garage floor paint, a highlight, and then adding some flocking and things on top. And then you've got a real nice base that you can just pop your trees into. And I've got holes in this already, and you can barely see them, so I try and find the holes I've already made, or just add more, it doesn't matter. But you can just pop these little trees in, and then they're going to stand up nicely, and then you can deconstruct it when you've finished and build something completely different. And I've used these hills in all different table setups, from fantasy, modern warfare, and even sci-fi. Next, I'll take some of that foliage and all these different pieces, and I'll try and create the idea that we've got some dense jungle. And so I'll just tie this around the different trees, loop it together. I'll even put some trees in to act as bushes so they don't have to stand straight up. Anything just to give that feel that the jungle is dense, you can't see through it. It's going to block line of sight. You're going to get lots of cover as well. And then I'll put that together in lots of different ways. So I'll make some big displays with some of the hills stacked up and maybe even a big tree on top. I'll work in some of those foliage pieces into the Warhammer trees. And then I've got lots of sections that I can use for the back as well. And what I'll do is I'll frame the 3-foot by 3-foot battlefield playing area to add some depth and immersion to it. And then I'll take some pieces like this. This is from the Warcry set. And this is fantastic for some kind of jungle ruins. It's going to work really nicely. And the foliage is going to take away from that Aztec feel and cover up most of it. But you're just going to see little bits of the masonry poking through. And then that's going to really give it that overgrown feel. In the Tour of Duty book, we recommend just house ruling your jungle terrain as well. And with our foliage here, we use it so that the foliage blocks line of sight, but it doesn't actually give you any cover, because we imagine the bullets would just go through it. And here's a few other pieces from that Warcry terrain. The bamboo's perfect for this. The big skull, not ideal, and just cover it up with a little bit more of that foliage. Here's another cool piece from the Catacomb set for Warcry, and this is going to be great in a little village. It could almost be like a little holding cell where they would keep the prisoners. And then I've got all these different walkways and wooden platforms as well. We can do some really cool things with these for the jungle theme, especially for a Southeast Asian theme. And so I've got these little pieces of card here which are great for swamp or little pools of water. These are from battle systems. And then I'll take these walkways and I'll imagine this is some kind of paddy field or maybe flooded area, and then the locals have put these walkways across it. So you could avoid the tricky terrain by going on the walkway, but if you end up in the paddy field, then that's going to be classed as tricky terrain and that's going to hinder your movement. I also like to take these wooden pieces, use them as barriers, add some of that foliage around it, and you've got a really nice feature that's going to block line of sight and give you plenty of cover. Let's look at buildings next, and I like to get the most out of the terrain I've got. So I've got a fantasy village here from Battle System. This is all made of cardboard, and I think it's going to be great as a Southeast Asian village. You can even go inside the building if you want to, which is really fun in the games. Take the fight inside, and then another little piece here, which would be a great feature. By the time you mix it with the trees and everything, it definitely comes away from that fantasy feel and does fit in with the environment. Then I've got some welcome mats that I've cut up, and I've made sure they fit in the little carts that also come in that Battle Systems Village Fantasy terrain set. So this is great. Couple of buildings, we're good to go. And I've also got a load of little pebbles, little stones, mixed in with some clump foliage as well. And then we can dot that around, as I'll show you later on once we set up a map. And then you can see how that just breaks up all the shapes. You could even use vehicles for your terrain, and I've got some of the Warhammer vehicles here that I've painted up. I really like the jungle feel, and these vehicles are going to fit in really nicely. Then there's tokens, and these I've included in Tour of Duty for you to print off. You've got trap tokens, and you've also got tunnel tokens. And then I've got these sticky clear acrylic like circles. You could use them for badges and things, but these are great for different crafting projects, and I really like them for the tokens. So I stick those onto the paper and then I'll cut them out, and then I've got tokens ready to go. And it's a good size as well, 1-inch size. So when you're using it in the game, especially in Tour of Duty, you have to place your models in base contact with it. So you can certainly get 4, even 6 around these tokens if the bases are small enough on the minis. And there you go, nice quick way to get some tokens made. I'll put a link to these little sticky tabs if you want to get some yourself. Spend a bit more time trimming it up so you get it a bit neater than I have here. But I think this is a really good way to make some quick tokens. There you are, I've tidied that up now. A lot nicer. That's going to be great on the table. And then I almost forgot, I've got some plastic rocks as well from Dungeons and Lasers. These are awesome. I really like these terrain pieces. Again, I use them in all different games, and so it's really making the most of your terrain collection and just being creative with how you put it together. Now here I've got the table set up and ready to go for this mission. So I've got the deployment zone set up with the coloured dice that you can see here and at the top as well. And then in the centre I've measured out that 12-inch square that's going to be really important for the objectives. Check out my new fancy arrow as well. Thanks to Halen Terrain for making that for me. You'll see more about that in some of the demo videos we'll be doing later this week. Let's start putting some terrain pieces down, and the idea for this video was from Joshua on the Facebook group, and he asked about what kind of trees and foliage to use if you don't have a big collection. So I'll start off with quite a frugal layout, and then we'll look at really making it a bit more dense. So we'll start off with a couple of nice big trees in the centre, again blocking line of sight. Then we'll add some pieces that we can use to get some nice cover. A few more trees to break up those firing lanes. Then we'll add a couple of hills to give our warriors a chance to really move up on the enemy and get some line of sight blocking on the table. So this could be enough for the scenario that we're looking at here for mission 1 of Tour of Duty. This would be plenty of terrain to get started with. I'd add some more scatter terrain if you've got it. Even could be crates, things like that, and barrels. Anything just to give you some extra cover as you move around. But let's add a bit more to it. So I'd want to add certainly a few more of these bigger pieces that I put together. And I'll put those in the corners, again giving those line of sight blocking areas. And I'll start to add in some rocks. Some of them you'll see here are going to go over the edge of the table. It doesn't matter. We're not going to play in these parts, but they're still going to add to the immersion of the game. So we want to put some foliage around those as well. Really start to frame the 3x3 foot battlefield. I love doing this, it adds so much depth to the battlefield, and I was talking to my friend Steve just the other day about model railways and how they've got those flat buildings like at the back of a set, or they've got a picture that kind of gives you an idea of distance, and I really like bringing that to the skirmish games as well. So you can certainly do it just by adding a few bits around the edge of the board. And then I'll finish off by grabbing some of these little pebbles and stones, dotting those around. We're going to break up the harshness of some of the bigger pieces where there's a bit of flat area, just to add some interest. Maybe pop a few stones in there as well. And to top it off, a few pools of water for tricky terrain, and we're good to go. And this is my kind of terrain, real dense jungle, loads of opportunities for hiding, for cover. You're going to be able to block line of sight, and then in this mission, it's a mad one. You've really got to get that landing zone under control so you can get the Medivac helicopter to land and get your guy out of there and back to safety. So this mission's all about really confronting the enemy, getting stuck in with a short number of rounds, and you've got a really important mission as well. So yeah, this is really fun, and having all this dense jungle just adds to the immersion of the game and really puts across this almost claustrophobic feeling that comes from being deep in the jungle. I love having lots of scatter as well. It allows you to just move up the battlefield, advancing your warriors forward, and because that's a nice 12-inch square, we can even put a helicopter in it if you wanted to. I'm going to get this Huey painted up this week and use it for some of the demo games to show off the Tour of Duty rules, which are great fun. You've got air and artillery support now, booby traps, tunnels where reinforcements and reserves come in. And the Tour of Duty rules also give you asymmetric teams, so you can play 4 Special Forces warriors now against larger forces, and I think that really matches with the Vietnam era kind of warfare. You've got a 4-man team of US Special Forces going up against a larger force of the Viet Cong or the MVA, and they've got a lot of control over the terrain. It's their home turf. They've got booby traps, they've got tunnels, so they can really start controlling the movement of the enemy. But it's not all one-sided, because the US have got the air and artillery strikes, and they can bring in helicopter strafing runs, bombs from aeroplanes, and they can even bring different types of artillery like smoke, illumination, and high explosives that can pin the enemy in place. So all very thematic, and I hope this video has helped to give you a few ideas about how you can use different terrain you might have. You've probably got some different trees like this, either from railway setups or like Warhammer, the different plastics and foam you can use. So loads of different options, and also it doesn't have to be dense, but I really like that setup. So it's just about tailoring the battlefield and the amount of terrain to your playstyle and what you want to have fun with. I'd love to hear your ideas for jungle terrain, so add them in the comments down below. It'd be great for everyone to read through them, I think. And just the main thing is to make use of the terrain you've got. So also make it multi-purpose, so you can use it in different eras for different themes: fantasy, sci-fi, and modern warfare, like we see here with Rogue Warriors. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it helpful. And if you'd like to find out more about Rogue Warriors and Tour of Duty, the new jungle expansion, I'll put a link down below. But for now, thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you hit the like button, subscribe as well to keep up to date with all the news, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters for helping me keep going with these regular videos, and if you'd like to support the channel, find out more about the perks and discounts you get on all our products there, then I'll put a link down below for that too. Be awesome to see you there.